Welcome to the Trades Podcast, a podcast about the business of home improvement and promoting the trades to young adults. In this podcast, we talk with business owners, educators, and professionals about the benefits, skills, and related experiences of the home improvement business. Tips to help you with being successful from entry into the trades or established business owners. In this podcast, we hope to influence some young adults that the trades, as a career, is a great option leading to full and prosperous life. I'm Danny Torres, an MC, DJ, and podcaster, inspiring young adults by shining light onto career opportunities in our world today.
And I'm Jeff Mudd, home improvement contractor, writer of the Millionaire Carpenter series, and podcaster.
Stay tuned to 15 to 20 minutes of insightful tips.
Happy days, everybody. Here we are at the TradesPodcast.com, right here in the BBB Ignite Studios. My name is DJ Danny.
And I'm Jeff Mudd, home improvement contractor and podcaster.
Yes, we are your podcasters here today, and we have a wonderful, wonderful guest, an awesome show that we're going to be, kind of a special show that we're going to be putting together here today. We have Mike Struzik. Mike, how you doing?
Good morning. Great to be here, Danny.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you are here as well. We're meeting over Zoom, which is great. You are in what city?
Right now, I live and operate out of Medford, Oregon, and I own and operate a company called CEO Focus, which is a peer consulting organization, and I specialize in working with small business owners and CEOs to help them get their businesses to the point where they run independent of somebody having to put 60 to 80 hours a week in to keep it going. And I have clients in Oregon, Washington, Arizona, and San Diego.
That's great. That's great. And obviously CEO Focus. You're working with business owners, company managers, CEOs.
Yes, I have two vertical audiences. One of them is the actual owners of the business primarily and the CEOs. And then the second group that I work with is what I call their key executives. So whoever is usually number 2 or 3 in the company of the CEO that I'm working with, we have a separate group for those number 2s and number 3s because they have a whole different set of issues than the guy at the top.
Yeah, that's great. And obviously, the reason why they would be reaching out to you is to really get it more in depth. I would say like a look from the outside in to really know exactly what the next steps they need to take with their employees.
My job and my goal in my business is to work with businesses to help them achieve extraordinary results, not just survive and do well, but blow it out of the water.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's kind of like what the topic we have today, right, Jeff?
Absolutely. With the hiring market today, not being able to find employees, let alone good employees or trained employees, it's a huge issue for most businesses right now, whether you're a home improvement contractor or a small restaurant or manufacturing, it's across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and really trying to hone in on that to, what's attracting those employers, those employers and employees.
And I don't have to tell you, gentlemen, that if wherever you are, if you drive down the street, you see help wanted signs, now hiring. Down here in Medford, they have help wanted signs everywhere, and starting salaries, to work in a car wash are close to $20 an hour. So they've really got to step up because it's so competitive right now. Right now, nationwide, of all the small business owners who are looking to hire to fill positions, 49%, fully half of them, are struggling and are being ineffective at doing it. And I think if you are trying to attract talent to your organization, and the way you're doing it is the way you posted jobs a couple of years ago, you are failing miserably because those methods don't work anymore. In my mind, the job of attracting talent to your organization is highly competitive, and it's a marketing event. It's far more than just slapping an ad on LinkedIn or slapping an ad on Craigslist or something of that nature, and then leaving it there until somebody finally picks up the phone or sends you an email.
100% correct, Mike. The times have changed. I'm hoping you can give us some insights to some new tactics that'll help business owners overcome these obstacles. And yes, whether you're in Northwest Oregon or Washington, I just spent some time in Texas. I've got some friends over the Thanksgiving in North Carolina and Tennessee. Man, this country is suffering from the ability to find employees that are engaged and willing to put in an honest day's work without feeling entitled.
Yes, absolutely. And what I said is, I believe true in that if you're looking to fill positions, there are so many people out there that are looking to better themselves with their employment situations, and they can be picky. They're in the driver's seat right now. So it behooves the business owner to do whatever he or she can to get out in front of them and make it more attractive to spend time talking with me than talking to somebody else. And you don't get that engagement by slapping an ad on Craigslist or LinkedIn. You've got to actively and aggressively market yourself, market your company, market your culture, all kinds of things. It's got to be a TV commercial of sorts all over the place to get somebody's attention.
Yeah. And I mean, that's something that we've talked about heavily on the show, is about culture. Culture's huge. Can you kind of dive a little bit deeper onto how important culture is for, say, the generations that are, like we call it right now? I think I continue to hear it. It's the great, where everybody's just leaving their jobs, and everybody's leaving their jobs and really not retaining their, it's not attractive for them to stay at the jobs that they are. But what can companies do to really hype up their culture to really keep everybody, engaged and exactly, staying with that company?
Recently there was a survey done on 8,000 people, employees across 14 countries, covering 17 industries, and it was done by a company that's a ethics and compliance company. And what they found was that corporate culture has a huge impact on attracting new hires and retaining existings, right? The companies that have the strongest ethical cultures were outperforming their peers by 40% across all measures. And now I'm talking about customer satisfaction levels, employee loyalty, innovation, adaptability, and growth. And so you're right. The culture that a company has and exudes is critical in attracting this new talent.
Yeah, absolutely. How does employer, I guess, advertises or push the type of culture they have out there to potential employees?
Well, the first thing I do is to look at your own house, right? And that is to assess the current state of your company culture, right? When I do the CEO group meetings, very often I'll go around the room and I'll go, if I was an applicant to your company and in a job interview, I asked you to describe your corporate culture to me, what would you say? It's such a difficult question for most people to answer because they haven't thought about it. Years ago, before I got into this coaching business, I was an EVP for a large bank in Los Angeles. And when I went to the job interview in Los Angeles, I asked that question. And the person who was interviewing me, that was going to be my boss, when I said, hey, how would you describe the culture here at the bank? She thought about it for a second and she said, the best I can tell you, Mike, is you'll know what the culture is when you step outside of it.
Interesting.
Not the answer I was looking for, but it was very honest, because most people will struggle trying to define what their culture is. And one of the things that I'm a strong proponent of when you're interviewing and recruiting is, we look to fill a spot, and we look for skills, and we look for aptitude. But we very often don't think about, is this person going to fit in with all the rest of the people here and be a good cultural fit for the organization? And I had a client in Southern California who was a contractor, and he had close to 100 people. And he hired a senior project manager, right? And he had 4 or 5 of them, and he was hiring a 6th one. This guy had good business going on. And the guy he hired probably forgot more about project management than the other 5 people that had the same job. That's how educated and smart this guy was. So Steve, the CEO, hired him. And within under 6 months, they figured out that this guy was a bull in a china shop, and he didn't get along with anybody. He didn't come close to aligning with the culture of the organization, and he ended up leaving. And that got really, really expensive to go find him, to go hire him, to bring him up to speed on what the projects were, and then to lose him. So now we're back out to square one, trying to find somebody who will fit the culture and have the skills we're looking for.
Absolutely. Not to mention the damage that he's done to the company and the other employees and the culture itself.
Yeah. So hiring for culture and looking at your own culture and assessing it is really important. When I suggest that to people, they say to me, well, how do I go about assessing our culture? Which is a really valid question. And the answer that I've come across that works best is to do what I call a climate survey, right? A climate survey says, let's pick, depending on the size and how many employees you have, right? If you have 70 or 80, you can't talk to all of them. So you might pick 15 to 20 of a nice mix of employees, from people who have been there a long time to people who have been there 6 months or under a year. And a climate survey sits them down and it asks them the same set of questions about, what is it like to work here for you? What would you change, if anything, about the job and about the organization? And a series of questions in that vein, so that the CEO and the business owner comes away with a really good sense of what his people think and feel about the company and about their jobs. And so that's really the first step, is to get a culture or a climate survey completed.
Have you had any clients, Mike, that have seen the results of that survey and been shocked?
Yes. In fact, the one client that I worked with, again, another contractor in San Diego, hired me to do a climate survey. And I built a set of questions. I think there were 25 questions. Each interview was about 90 minutes long. It was pretty thorough. And I talked to 25 people in that company over a course of several weeks. Then I collated all the results and I shared them with the owner of the company, who was stunned. He had no idea what was going on. But he worked on it, which was the key. Mm-hmm. And so then 9 months later, he called me up and he said, I want you to come in. I want you to interview the same 19 people that you did 9 months ago. And I want you to ask them the same set of questions and see if anything's changed. And what was welcome and interesting is that the results did a 180. This CEO worked on everything that we shared with him in the analysis, and he really took it to heart, and he changed it in under a year. And that's not easy to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's key, because I mean, as a young millennial, I have to say, you really do just kind of analyze those aspects of where you do work with employers, knowing exactly how involved those CEOs, those managers, those bosses that are above you, to really understand if they really understand what's going on within the culture of the business. Because
And the thing about it is, if you're going to do a climate survey for your own company, you got to be mentally prepared to hear about some harsh truths about how things operate. And then the next step is to take active steps to address those critical strength areas or critical risk areas, and then build them into strengths. And it's not easy, and you can't do it passively. There's really got to be a plan for how to go about it. And so, we're just at the start of a new year, and a lot of people are building business plans and setting goals for the companies and doing things of that nature. And so it's a perfect time to think about including a cultural improvement step into your business plan for 2022. And some of the elements of that plan should include things like key objectives. In other words, what are we trying to get better at and why? What are the action items that need to happen to affect those changes, right? Third one is realistic timelines. It's not going to all happen in Q1, right? It might take the better part of a year. It might take 18 months, but you've got to space it out and set a realistic timeline for getting this accomplished. Then figure out who are the stakeholders in this role. Who are the managers and the key executives that you want to help participate in this and hold them accountable for getting the results you need. And then the last thing is, how are we going to measure the change? And so those are some of the key elements. If you really want to do a cultural improvement plan for your company, these are the kind of things to talk about.
Yeah, that's a key pillar to it, and being able to measure that and really being able to see exactly where you can fix and where you can adjust within the company, and specifically with your just the interactions that you have with your employees on a daily basis, on keeping them involved and just really letting them know that you are there for them.
And I can tell you that to do this kind of an activity takes courage, because you're going to hear some things you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It seems like it'd be much easier just to pay a couple $1,000s to have a nice big billboard on the side of the freeway saying we're hiring.
Yeah.
No, because everybody's got that billboard in some fashion, right? They either have a sign in the window, or they bought one of those ridiculous looking flags that goes into the ground and flaps in the breeze that says now hiring, right? Everybody's doing that. And so you could spend $10,000 doing billboards all over town, but unless the messaging is far beyond the words now hiring, you're wasting your money. What I would rather have you spend the money on, and wouldn't have to be near as expensive, is to leverage some social media to help you find the right kind of people for your business. And I'm not talking about just slapping an ad on LinkedIn. What I'm talking about is consider all the channels of social media as a possible candidate pool. And then look at the things of, if I want to hire certain types of people, the first question is, where are my ideal candidates hanging out on social media? Right? So for example, if I'm looking for strictly a white collar position to fill in my organization as a senior manager, I immediately would go to LinkedIn to look for that person, because odds are that's where they hang out, right? If I'm looking for somebody in the trades who's going to wear a tool belt and be a carpenter, all right, not so much on LinkedIn, but about other places like Facebook. And the studies I've seen says when people are looking for a new job, Facebook is the number one place that they check a company out to see what their values are, to want to talk to their employees, to find out what the culture might be, what others are saying about them. And so I think it's incumbent on the owners to go way beyond just posting a job, but marketing and advertising the job and the company. And you can do that if you really get into leveraging social media beyond just posting the position, they have tools that you could use to leverage everything about your company. You could do videos about what the company does and how we do it. You could do short videos interviewing current employees and what they think about working at this company, right? You could look for hashtags that are included on certain accounts so that you can tag them and get in front of the types of people you're looking to hire. Yeah. So you've got to really get active. I think looking for qualified talent is a full-time job. And there are so many small businesses that can't afford what I would call an HR department. So they assign one person to it and they say, hey, go post an ad and let's hire for being a carpenter. And today, phone doesn't ring when that's all you do.
Totally agree. Danny, as a younger adult, you're on Facebook, Instagram, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
TikTok. Was that an influencer to some of the things you do in life?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just going to mention because, it is a huge thing that a lot of our generation will go into is try to see exactly what we want to do is really find out what the culture is on social media and what type of engagement that they have on those platforms to be able to understand who they are as a business, how they operate, who they have operating those platforms, and really the message that they're trying to put across from it. And you brought up a great example. If you just bring up Facebook, I constantly see those style Facebook ads of Facebook employees, and obviously Facebook owns Instagram employees that do give those testimonials of what the culture is working at those companies are. And they're the ones that are running those platforms. And obviously if it's something that every business can have as a tool to use on those aspects the same way that Facebook uses it, there's no reason that any company should be able to do the same.
And I think those interviews with current employees are the most critical and powerful messages that would get somebody to hit the click apply button. And here's why I believe that. If I'm a serial Amazon shopper, I'm always buying my stuff through Amazon. But when I'm researching a product, the very first thing I go to is to read the customer reviews. All right. And if I see too many negative reviews on this product, I click out of it and I go find something else. It's the same thing in employment. Yep. Unless I see employees talking to me about the culture and their jobs and what they like about working there, and I see the sincerity in that message so that it's not false, that tells me, this might be a pretty good place to work. I've got a client in the seafood industry who's got about 125 employees. Now, here's what's the kicker about it. 50 of them have been with Dave over 25 years.
That's amazing.
That's amazing retention.
It really is. Circling back to social media, Mike. So a lot of people use social media to advertise their company. So I know in my experience, we post pictures of a lot of completed projects, or videos of the customer's testimony. So we try to mix some fun things in there also. So is having a mix of all those and employee videos and
you can't have too many of these. You should use every tool available to you. And here's another place to find talent. Assuming, Jeff, your company has a Facebook presence.
It does.
And maybe a LinkedIn presence. I'm guessing that there are people who are following you, looking for what you post today and yesterday and next week. If they're following you, that shows an interest, and that might be one of the gene pools to be fishing from if you're looking for talent. Go find out who's following you and approach them saying, hey, what do you think? Should we talk?
Yeah. Agreed. Well, I actually, as a business owner, I follow some other businesses simply to see what they're doing, see to do research also. So I imagine there's some of that, but there definitely is I agree with you. The masses out there, when they go to look at a company, however they find you, they're using the social media tool to analyze you, research you before they even make a phone call or respond.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's no different than shopping for construction services. I need a new deck. So I'm going to get online, and the research says that today consumers complete close to 70% of their shopping on their project before they ever reach out to a contractor to see who's going to help them do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's crucial. And I mean, you mentioned retention, obviously. So first we started talking about attraction. We went into a little bit about culture, and you mentioned retention. I think that's a huge aspect, and it just correlates two and two together. You want to dive a little bit into that retention side of things?
Yes, and I don't know if you guys have heard this phrase, but people are talking about the Great Resignation.
Yes.
And is it coming for you? And here's what is just an astounding number. In the last 3 months of 2021, 12 million people quit their jobs. 9% of the workforce quit their jobs and said, I'm not doing this. I'm not coming back. I'm going to go find something that aligns better with my lifestyle balance, what I need out of it, right? I'm not going to live to work. I'm going to work to live. Mm-hmm. And so they all left. And it's astounding. That's why we have all these help wanted signs all over the universe, right? And it goes way beyond blaming this on COVID-19, because that's not it. COVID-19 was just a catalyst to get this kind of thinking started, because then companies or employees of companies started thinking about, what about my job? Am I happy in it? Do I want to stay here? Everybody's hiring. There's got to be greener grass somewhere. And so, we sit there and we look at filling the open requisitions and trying to fill those by hiring people. But yet we tend to ignore the people who are already on payroll because we think they're satisfied and happy. Well, 12 million people that were working for those companies decided they weren't happy and satisfied, and they quit. And I think it behooves all business owners to take an active participation in retaining the talent that they don't want to lose. Mm-hmm. And there's some flags to look for about what might be the potential of somebody walking out the door on me. Okay? First one, loss of trust, right? When a person's career doesn't follow the expected trajectory, they start wondering about if they made the right decision to work here, right? And so I've seen top talent lose faith in a manager because an expected opportunity just didn't materialize for them. And that gets to be very risky because it's deflating. It doesn't make you want to get up and come to work in the morning. I work with a key executive who's been with the company over 10 years, has done a number of jobs for the organization, and is probably one of the most flexible and bounce back kind of people that you're ever going to have as an employer. Really, really valuable. But yet she's questioning what's going on in her organization because decisions get made about her and her position in her department that don't include her input about the direction that it should go. And so these edicts get handed down that come out of left field, and it makes you rethink, do I really want to be here? Mm-hmm. I'm not part of the group. I'm one of the worker bees, and I get shut out.
It almost seems like your value is diminished in that point, right?
Yes. And unclear career paths. Nobody wants to be a bank teller for 25 years without moving up into the organization, right? Nobody wants to be a receptionist for 10 years without moving to a more exciting position. And if you don't have those discussions about career paths, and you know what? I don't care if you're a small business that has 4 or 5 employees. I would assume that small business would like to grow to 8 to 10 or more employees, and that's a career path opportunity. You have to rely on the ones you have to help you get to 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Mike. As an employee, you need to see not only a vision for the company. If you're a good employer, good boss, you articulate that vision to the employees, but you also need to know how you're involved, what your trajectory, what your opportunities in that vision are. And I know on the quarterly meetings I had, I always talked about growth. And after the first few meetings, I was getting some feedback. Well, we don't care about how much gross sales we're doing. And it's like, so I had it wrong. It wasn't clarifying. So I started talking about growth is more than just sales. Sales drives that. With growth in the sales department, you have more opportunities to grow with opportunities for employees, whether more wages, more projects, higher end projects to work on, more education for the office staff, more different types of
resources,
products we were installing, so product knowledge.
And it also impacts employees different ways based on their age. Younger employees are more likely to make a quick career change than an older employee is. In fact, the study I read on millennials said by the time the millennial gets into the job market and turns the age of 30, the average number of jobs they held is 16.
Wow. I was gonna say, I heard once like the average person has 7 jobs in their career right now.
if I didn't,
not if you're a millennial, 7 jobs to a millennial is just warming up.
I think that's me. I have to be on that level because if I didn't continue to where I'm at with my DJing career right now, then I probably would be on number 12. I probably would be, honestly, and it's super true because I have seen just. Even within just one of the last employers that I did work for personally, I just asked if there was still employees that I worked there. There was a whole group that was there, at least there for a good 2 years together. And, I went back and I asked, I said, hey, is there anybody still there? I said, no, everybody's been wiped out, or not wiped out, but they left on their own. And they went to go find other career opportunities, either within the same industry or left the industry itself. And it's
very few people know this. In the credit industry, if you're applying for a credit card, MasterCard, Visa, Home Depot, wherever, the credit rating agencies will actually mark down your scoring if you've been in the same job 7 years or longer.
Wow. I've never heard of that.
Yep.
I did not
because
know that.
In their minds, you're not progressing and you become a credit risk at some level. So they mark you down on points.
Is that the same for in case if you change, say, positions within the same company, or is it just you're working at the same company?
If that's reflected on the application, they'll see that you're being promoted.
Okay.
But if I've been the bank teller and I'm going on my 9th year as a bank teller, that's kind of a problem.
Right. Interesting.
That is. How can we tie that back into our talk about? We were talking about growth, the clear, unclear career paths. That employers are kind of having an issue with about retention.
Well, here's where I think the biggest key in all those companies lie, and it's in your managers. And I think you guys have heard the axiom that says employees don't fire companies, employees fire managers, and that's why they leave. And those are the people who can determine more than anybody in your company whether I as an employee am going to stick around or I'm going to bolt. And one of the biggest things is you may have a long-term employee who couldn't be happier and loves the manager they work with. And then that manager either gets promoted somewhere else or leaves the company, and tomorrow that person has a new manager who thinks quite differently from the old one. That starts the downward spiral. So your managers are really key because I think as business owners, once we have our management team in place, we grant them all kinds of credibility for knowing what their jobs are, and they're not doing them. And so I think it behooves the business owner to work with those managers and monitor them, coach them, show them how to hold meetings with their direct reports, gauge how their direct reports are feeling, make sure that it's routine for them to discuss career options with all the people that they work under them. The other part would be to insist on a strong development plan for each team member. Now, in my CEO group, every year I ask them to do a presentation that reviews the past year and sets their business plan for the upcoming year. And then we get together and we present it to the rest of the CEOs, who all become devil's advocate about, is this the best way to do this? Right? Now, not only do I have the CEOs do that, but I use the same exact template for my key executives that work for these CEOs, because those are the guys leading the management group, and they actually play a more important and significant role than the CEO himself or herself. So I think it's important to do that. What's becoming more and more popular that I've been really pushing with my group are for employers to do what are referred to as stay interviews. All right. So you sit down with each individual privately, and in effect, it's the same kind of questions and discussion that you might hear in an exit interview, only it's not an exit interview. Tell me about your job. What makes you get up in the morning? What makes you happy? If you were in charge of this department, what would be different? How would you change the job? Are there work processes that don't make sense and that we could improve on that you have to work with every day? And so all of a sudden now the employee is starting to realize that, this guy actually cares about my opinion. He asked, right? Now, I just had a client who finished these, right? They did 9 stay interviews, and it was kind of interesting because the key executive that did those interviews told me that by the next week, he received 5 emails out of the 9 people that he talked with thanking him for doing those. He said, it was really nice to hear that you care about what I'm doing for the company and what my opinion is about making things better.
Is a follow-up on that your ability as a CEO to follow through on their suggestions and give them feedback?
Yes, where it's appropriate to do that, and the other thing is when the strong CEO affects change in the organization based on employee feedback, it's really important to not keep that a secret.
Absolutely. Give credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
We'll give credit where it's due. Make sure everybody in the organization knows that Bill suggested this workflow process change, and we looked at it and said it makes perfect sense. And when we analyzed it, it saves us somewhere in the vicinity of 5% on every product we manufacture. So Bill, here's a check for $500. Thanks for your input.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what keeps people from leaving the organization. And the last thing I'll share with you guys is in terms of retention, when I ask all the business owners, what's the number one thing employees will either stay or leave about? They all say, the amount of money they're making. Everybody wants a raise. And it's not true. The number one reason that would make employees stay is professional development. You spend $200 on sending Sally to a QuickBooks class one day out of the building. You spend $300 for a 2-day class to send a carpenter to a skills class on how to use, go to a higher level with what they know how to do. That training makes people stay in companies longer than anything else you can do. And so again, going into 2022, part of a business plan should also include what kind of professional development am I going to offer from the people who work here. That'll keep them around and keep them happy.
It's definitely a huge part of the equation right now.
Yep.
And one thing that we've talked about in the show, I think, just looking back on last season with a lot of the company owners, where there were a lot of resources on finding, how to enhance their skills that they may have learned from within that company or outside from another company. It really showed exactly how long they had certain employees and how easy it, or not easy, but how simple it was for the owners to really kind of put them in a supervisor position, in a managerial position, to be a floorman, to be a supervisor. And it just goes to show that, if you put those tools in place for your employees, it really does allow them to, feel that fulfillment within the company and also want to continue to work harder for obviously the business and for themselves. I think it's...
Yeah, and one of the things that we lose sight of sometimes, to your point, Danny, is if you really want an employee to learn a new skill and learn it really well, ask them to teach it to somebody else.
Yep.
They don't want to be in a position to make themselves look bad, so they will learn everything there is about how to do that. So they are the mentor with the silver wings when they go to impart that knowledge.
Yeah, so it also takes some people that have the ability to talk a lot of, let's say, crap about their abilities. And when you say, okay, show us. You're in charge of presentation next week or next month. And it puts people in their place a lot of the times too.
Yeah.
So the ones that are really interested in growth and potential step up and handle it. The other ones, you get to see the true self.
Yeah. So retention's a big deal right now because those 4 million people left employers who probably didn't expect them to leave. 4 million a month.
Yeah.
So, it makes a business owner's and a CEO's job critical these days. And even the survey that's been done 5 years in a row with CEOs across the country, they asked, the question is, what's the number one issue in your company moving forward and into the new year? And 5 years in a row, it's been the same answer. And that is finding and retaining top talent.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Mike, as we get ready to close out this fantastic educational show that we've done, do you have any review points you want to put together for us, or how can you help out other business owners?
Well, I am always happy to give of my time to talk with any business owner, find out what's going on in their business, and make some suggestions that are more realistic in nature than academic. So anybody who wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to sit and chat with them about their business and see if there's ways that I can help them accelerate it. And all it takes is their time to see if it makes sense for us to want to talk further beyond that first chat.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously this episode was a very special one to bring Mike on. And, just while we were going through from attraction to culture to retention to really organizational change within the company and on what needs to happen during this great resignation that we're going through for employees, it's really, this episode is going to be for all, both business owners, managers, supervisors, and mainly even more important for the ones that may be looking into getting into trades or to a different industry that they possibly might be in already. And because you're able to really understand what really does hold an employee within a company. And if you're listening to Mike and us today, then really just take it to know and really just understand that there's those principles that you want to look for when you do look for an employer, and possibly if you're going to be hiring, how you're going to want to keep those employees within your company. So, Mike, it's been awesome really to have you on the show today.
I appreciate the time you gentlemen have afforded me. It's a passionate topic for me, and I've been working with all the CEOs on this because I think it's so critical. We try to get owners to understand that systems should run the business and employees should run the systems. And if you don't have your systems that work efficiently, then you need to hire even better employees to deal with that and make it work. And so with everybody looking to hire right now, employers are a big risk. And I think they need to be out in front of it instead of behind it trying to play catch up. But I appreciate the opportunity to share my opinions and my thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's been great. So if anybody's going to be wanting to reach out to you to get some more information about CEO Focus, how can we, what's the best way we can contact you?
You can send me an email if you like at mstruzik@ceofocus.com, or you can call me. My direct number is 619-339-2627.
Perfect. And of course, we're going to be having Mike's info on our website, thetradespodcast.com. Thank you so much. I am DJ Danny.
And I'm Jeff Mudd. Thank you again, Mike, for being on the show.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Happy New Year.